Every company is a technology company today.
Has to be. But you can't possibly keep up with all the options. Having a reliable partner that knows the space, knows the people, is the only way of really being able to succeed anymore.
Today on the CIO Lifeline, we have Mark Rhodes, business process solution automation provider. You don't want to miss this one. Mark, how are we doing today?
I'm doing swell, Tony. How about you?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate you being on here. We have such a interesting history, interesting for us anyway, uh,
That's a fair
that I'd
comment.
like to touch upon. Yeah, that I'd like to touch on, and then what brought us here today, right?
Right.
It's all about that business partnership relationship between the customer and the vendor, or the partner, as I like to say.
Yes. Well, I got to say, I was so honored to receive a request to spend some time with you. Of course, I love every conversation we've ever had. And I feel a little bit like this is turning the tables. I got to believe that at some point I did a podcast kind of interview with you. And so we're even after this. So I wanted to totally know
Yeah,
you.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and it's like I said, I'm with you. I enjoy every conversation we have. In fact, if we do a little bit of an origin story here, I you were director of dynamic communities for the Navision Business
Yep. Yep.
Central. I never even heard of Navision when I joined the company I'm with. So this goes
Oh,
back 10 and
wow.
a half years. Yeah, and Tom Dorn, a colleague of ours, exposed me to Dynamics Communities and introduced me to you, and then one thing led to another, and I joined the advisory board, and so every month, you got the group together, and away we went.
Well, and I'll share real quick too. Part of that origin story too, right? Yeah, not a lot of people probably hear this part is that you co-led the CIO Council, which I absolutely loved that concept and that activity. We had CIOs from the membership, I'd say a dozen ish, right? That certainly
Correct.
met to do a lot of what you're doing right now, just facilitating knowledge sharing and so forth, best practices, et cetera. But then we had the great opportunity to meet several times a year with the Microsoft Nav and now Business Central leadership.
I appreciate that, and it because you think of, Microsoft, the 800-pound gorilla, this global behemoth, and so to be able to get key individuals within Microsoft around the table.
Right. So yeah, again, honored and excited when you queried me to have a conversation around the partner customer relationship. I've actually it's been one of just kind of those key focus points for me for a long time. I don't know what it is. I see so much opportunity in this conversation and in those relationships and know that it can be so much better. And I guess it's just being on the receiving end of a lot of stories and comments and everything else over the years. I actually was a partner for 15 plus years before joining the user groups. And then as part of the user groups, oh boy, maybe weekly, I'd get a call from a member either having an issue with their partner or asking my opinion about who the good partners are out there because they're looking to switch and so forth. And it actually led me to do a couple different surveys of the membership when I was with the user groups around the partner customer relationship. Very, very insightful and learned quite a bit through that.
When we were in Scottsdale back in May for Dynamics Con Live 2023, Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com asked me to participate in a panel. And my last episode was with Jason, and we talked about this interesting study because I was surrounded by marketing folks from businesses, from vendors, from VARs, and I was the I was the lone consumer or customer on the panel, and it was all about marketing approaches, what works, what doesn't. How do you get your foot in the door? you got two schools of thought here. You have the legacy mindset, and I think I'm tagging it appropriately, where you're just there to sell a product, and you're just a vendor, and it's not a genuine relationship you're looking to build, and maybe that comes later, but getting your foot in the door and getting the attention, how do you approach that?
You got to be very simple, very succinct. That's really what it comes down to. You're competing with so much noise out there. I think this is one of the areas that a partner for a customer, their value has really grown over the past 10 years in terms of being able to bring the right solutions at the right time for their customers, right? Because again, as a CIO, you can't possibly keep up with all the options. It could be a full-time job just figuring that out for a few days, right? And you don't have that kind of time. So right there, having a reliable partner that knows the space, knows the people, has the experience in terms of the solutions and their delivery, be able to turn that kind of business problem over to a partner and get a good recommendation. I see that as the only way of really being able to succeed anymore.
Mark, this is why you're successful. I mean, just if I rewind and listen to what you are saying again, it's a thoughtful, warm. It's not scripted. It's not robotic. You sound like you care. I mean, these are things that resonate with me. And if I key in on something you brought up earlier about how you even manage this today,
Right.
like I've said this many times in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Every company is a technology company today.
Has to be.
So, yes, and the expansion of what we do, yes, you gotta keep the lights on, like, there's table stakes IT, that's not going
Right.
away.
Right.
It's all the added things, and the lean mentality that businesses take haven't changed. Legacy mindset of what IT really does mean to an organization, that's a tough road. We're not there yet. So you have a lot of these forces that make the job all the more difficult. And this is why I value having strong partner relationships. I don't want a commodity offering. I want someone that I can pick up the phone, have a conversation with, someone that sees me ringing in and goes, it's 5:01, whatever it is, it can wait till tomorrow. I want someone that, you got to have a relationship. They have to be a partner, not a vendor, because there's just too much to manage and these things are too important.
I love that you mentioned that because in prepping for our conversation today, I went back to those couple surveys I mentioned. In the bottom five, in terms of satisfaction, one was around feeling, as a customer, feeling that they're important to the partner. And you hit it right there. And that's a tricky one, right? Every customer can't be important to every partner. But it is important to know that they are interested in you and they want to work with you, and they are going to pick up the phone if it's 5:01 because they know, hey, it could be an important issue, those types of things. Better that than to wonder, gosh, I don't feel like I'm important to them, but I guess we'll just kind of suck it up and move on, right? Nobody wants to feel that, and the partner doesn't want you to feel that either.
No, because that empathy, if I'm calling it right, has to be a two-way
Right,
street, right?
right,
You can't be a punching bag. I don't want to
yeah,
be just a grain of sand on
right,
your beach, right?
right.
It's a delicate balance. Now, you got to make sure we have the right solution for the business. Um,
Hmm.
but once you've checked those boxes and we know it's a right fit,
Yeah.
I think building that relationship is critical.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, oh yes.
Well, so who's your ideal point of contact with your customers?
If the business believes that IT understands their goals and their processes and what's important and so forth, and can represent them as well, I think it's certainly a natural connection point for IT to work with a partner. However, what we're talking about is the partner bringing solutions that drive the business forward, right? And so increasingly, I get concerned that the business isn't appreciating the speed of development with technology in general.
I think all IT leaders are going through that on some level.
Yeah.
Now, implementing a solution, you have
Ooh,
various components to that, right? Yeah, woof is a good way to put it. You have the project management, you have expectations. That one is huge for me.
yes.
And then communication throughout the project. So, do you feel that is a more that there is a recipe that works for you, or does that also vary from customer to customer?
I have several recommendations or several, let's just say suggestions, that will work so much better in your life if you're able to make some of these adjustments. Situation came up a couple of weeks ago where we got to the end of a demo and we're talking about next steps, and had a leader on the call that said, "Okay, yeah, we need to get this implemented by end of July." Has absolutely no bearing on scope.
Eh.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not a
On
good start.
what the requirements are, what they're trying to achieve, goals, who's involved. Just complete. Picking a date on the calendar doesn't work for anything.
No, to me, it's aspirational, right? It's you want to work towards something,
Great.
but when you have projects of this type of complexity, don't ask
Yes.
me for a date because I'm not. All you're doing is you're just setting me up for failure.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And it's amazing to me this happens in 2023 because this happened in I don't want to say when in the 90s that it started doing this stuff. And so the fact that that still continues, and now maybe sometimes they're trying to push the team, and that's not really the date that has to be done. But don't play games with this stuff.
I don't fault. I'll call them traditional leaders that go down the date road. Because if you think of a traditional non-technological project as I'm going to build a new warehouse, well, I mean, you can put dates to that with reasonable certainty because you know the physical elements and how we're going to put it up, and we got to get it inspected, and lights. When you talk about software and technology and the intertwining of logic and different things, it's a much different animal that requires a different way of thinking. Yeah.
And when you do that, when you approach it from that perspective, then some of the softer elements of the project almost always get pressed, shortcutted, etc. And I'm talking about, say, user testing. I'm talking about change management, those types of things. I used to have also a graphic. I would do a triangle, right? And you have scope, time, and money on the three sides.
Well, the triple constraints,
Exactly.
right? You have quality, you have time, and you have money. You could have two or three. You can't have all three.
This relates to one of the other kind of just things that drive me nuts about that relationship, and especially from the customer side. I can't tell you the number of times that as a partner doing an implementation, we're brought in to manage and lead them successfully. And you know what, customers, partners have these same goals: on time, on budget, successful, everybody's happy, right? It's the same goals. And so theoretically, if everybody's working on the same goals, you should be working together. Yet, so many times the customer feels that the partner's trying to scam them or doesn't trust them or trying to cut corners or whatever.
I get it.
And I never understood you are spending so much money to not trust this partner. And it's so fundamentally wrong.
I go through it today. It's like, well, of course, the partner wants to know A, B, and C because that's more billable time, And I have maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I have less and less patience to go down that conversation path. And then if it devolves into I don't know any better or they're pulling the wool over my eyes, ooh, game on,
Right, right.
And it's just what we have to manage through, right?
Again, this all comes back to, really the foundational elements are communications and expectations.
And it involves telling you what you don't necessarily want to hear. The quickest way to build
Ooh,
trust with me
yes.
is you can deliver
Very good.
bad news
Very good.
in a timely manner.
Yes.
Yeah. When I think about implementing a solution, so project management is super important. but I think it's project management on both sides,
Yes,
right?
right. Yes,
From the partner
yes,
side and the customer side. And you mentioned about working with a customer and you had a resource conversation, they committed it. I go to, because I think what's typical, unless you're a larger company, having a dedicated project team, because most of the time, you tell me if I'm wrong, it's people with their day jobs, and we're lean, companies are lean. So now you have high stress day job, and now you're going to be part of the project team, which to me kind of devalues the work that's meant to go into that. And so now you have, what creeps into that is some corner cutting and poor testing, and it just heightens the need to have a dedicated project manager. There's all these variables that just make these complex projects difficult.
I've always thought it's a pay me now or pay me later situation. You just have to go through the work, whether you do it right from a proactive standpoint or you're doing it reactive after the
Right.
project and scrambling and you have a lot of pain then. It's going to be expended at some point because you're talking about change.
Yeah, and expectations, being realistic with your expectations, because I always like to cite Microsoft again, this global behemoth, where every month there's cumulative updates for their products, patches for their, and they have QA teams that are larger than companies. And yet when you release something to the masses, something inevitably gets uncovered. And so, and I say it because these are the types of expectations I love when partners bring to the table. I call it the reality conversation. We're going to test and we're going to do, but here's what you can expect when you go live. You're going to have, a list of 10 issues that are hot, in the first hour. And these things are, thank you. Now I feel like we're off on the right foot.
Yes, 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 exactly. It's interesting to us. We have thousands of implementations around the world, yet every day we get something that pops up that we haven't really seen before. Because guess what? You just hit on it. We're installed into an environment that something is different than anything we've ever experienced before. Because you're talking about probably a billion different combinations in terms of the applications they use and the modifications they might have, the settings, and in terms of their servers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? There's some wacky
And
thing
you
that they
and
have
you
that
you're right,
nobody
you
else
can't
does.
control that.
Right, right.
Yeah, you're like, hey, look, this is great in your current environment, but if you make changes, we can't guarantee
Yeah,
it. Well, of course they're gonna make
sure.
changes. There's so many factors that go into technology,
Yes,
not to
yes,
mention the underlying operating system that's running
right.
it, or the browser that's, you think we can contain and control Google and Microsoft? Crazy.
Right,
I mean,
right.
so we roll with it, right? I mean,
Mhm.
this is just the complex nature of
Yeah,
IT.
yeah, exactly.
I like a partner that can tell me no, that's not afraid to deliver bad news in a timely manner, and tells me things that they know I don't want to hear. Like, okay, I want to launch in July. You're crazy. If you're lucky, it'll be next July. I mean, that's I like starting there,
Hmm, hmm.
but sometimes you have customer. I think, Mark, I because from a customer to fire a vendor, I think that's common, um, or more common than the reverse, right? Having to fire a customer.
Yes.
So you as a
Yeah.
vendor, so maybe talk through that and what's the thought process? Because I
Yeah.
guess at a basic level, you're walking away from revenue.
And that's what I think partners just even felt hostage for so long, right? And so I don't know if it's become easier just because everybody's so busy, or partners are finally getting to a maturity level with their company. They can say, "Look, we recognize the damage. What happens when we don't have a good customer?" And there's a couple different situations. Some customers, they're just never going to be a good customer, right? Because of just how they approach and their culture and so forth. And takes all types in the world. Fine. There are other customers who sometimes it's just not a good match with that partner, but there is another partner that would be a better match for them.
Have I experienced much better relationship, productivity, efficiencies, switching partners? Absolutely. Have I had buyer's remorse when I made a switch? Yes. I mean, so I'm kind of all over the map with that. One thing though that I would say is that it's more common for me is making team changes within that partner, because the underlying solution is going to be the same in theory. It's just having the right team, the right chemistry, which I want to get I want to brush on and get your thought, and that is conflicts of interest. Because businesses will have codes of conduct, and you don't want to be accepting a home entertainment system from said vendor to keep the business. There's your extreme example. But sometimes having the right relationship can be misconstrued or looked at as a negative. See as a partner strengthening element to it that serves you well. How do you dance that?
In general, partners are hiring pretty professional, educated people, but I don't know that I've ever been involved in any kind of conversation around that. So it's a really interesting question. I don't. Yeah, I haven't heard of any issues related to that. I don't know. What are your other thoughts around that?
We lightly talked about it in the beginning about picking up the phone.
Right.
You know, it's 5:01. Oh wait, Tony's calling me. There's a problem.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's why when I've made team changes with partners, it's because of that. I want so I in hiring my direct reports, they have to pass the happy hour test. How are they in a social setting? Will there be chemistry and culture fit? So if we're going to hold our employees to that standard, I'm going to hold my partners to that standard. Now, the guy or gal I'm buying, ink from, I could care less. But someone who's entrenched in our ecosystem, I want to make sure that there's a good relationship there. Because when we have to break the glass, I want to make sure I'm getting the right attention, the right expertise, and someone who's not going to sell me something else.
Hmm.
Now, if the partner is 10th on the top 10 list, but if you have a top tier vendor, a top tier partner in your ecosystem, and you have that great relationship, and it's very competitively priced. I mean, we're not bleeding each other dry here. Everybody's got to make some money, but if you're well below market, and there's a lot of other things, embrace it. Because I know when there's a problem and I have to make the call, someone's going to pick up who's going to get the job done. And I never want to cut anybody in line, right? But if we have a particular issue we need fixed, and you're in the middle of a go live, hey, I'm sorry. Um, it's an art form. I think a leadership art form.
I'm glad you touched on that because I see a lot of that now or more recently, and everybody's just busier and has less patience and so forth. There are two thoughts there. One, when a customer has an issue and it's urgent, um, explain that. Explain why it's urgent, right? Generally speaking, the partner wants to share in your urgency, but they can't if they don't understand why, right? Because guess what? They have a lot of customers that come and say it's urgent, and then it's not. Another trick lately, right, is that there's understand that a partner's business, the partner's team, it's kind of like a hotel, right? It is sitting there to be used, and if it's not used, it goes basically empty, right? And so there's a cost associated with that. So if you want immediate action on everything all the time, there's a cost to that because the partner has to have many more people sitting around waiting for those calls versus right if you don't want to pay super premium rates to have immediate access to folks, then and you want to pay a little bit less, well, then the economics drive a smaller team, and therefore then there's going to be ebbs and flows to that team's product output, right? And so sometimes you're going to have to wait. It's a hard thing.
Now, Mark, what if the customer has the relationship with a vendor where that you know getting that top tier response time, but not at the top tier rate? What would you say to that
I'd say they're
relationship?
that good for them. And that's part of the
Well
relationship
said.
too, right? But
Enough said.
yeah,
No, that and again, that's part of the art form. That's the part of the
yeah,
art form of being a leader,
yes,
because you're not going to have that with every
right,
with every
right,
vendor. It's just not real.
yeah,
It's just not realistic. But if you can pull that off with your key vendors, I say I salute you.
yeah, absolutely. Again,
Yeah,
communication expectations, right? These are kind of things that are seldom talked about up front,
yeah.
and but end up being very, very important.
And think about how fast time flies. I mean, it's you bat an eye, and it's 12 months later. No matter how busy a day you have, or the inertia of your day, and again with project teams, typically they're made up of folks with day jobs. um, I don't care if the email is, hey, I know I haven't had an update out in 2 weeks, my apologies, but here are 3 bullet points. Wow, how impactful that is. It's when you go dark and when you're ghosting for weeks on end or months on end, there's nothing good that comes out of it. So make the time, and it could be as brief as it needs to be, but communication super important.
I used to tell my customers, you tell them what you want them to know, or they're going to make it up. Now, which do you want? Because there's
uh,
going to be that void, period.
that is great advice.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you believe me, you don't want the latter. That's for sure, because they're going to get it wrong and going to get to some bad conclusions. So,
Well, okay, and then there's another sin that comes out of that, and that is perception. Like, perception is reality for many different folks. So if you get a couple malformed opinions, or you form your own wrong opinion, and that becomes your fact, good luck overcoming
right,
that
right.
perception. You can do it, but there's certain individuals, and that it's for you're gonna waste a lot of time and energy and not move the needle.
Now, everybody that's watching or listening, I want to make sure that you, at the end of this podcast, go back to, I think it was in April that Tony had a discussion on change management. One of the best discussions I've ever seen on change management.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate your comments on that. Yeah, that is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I think for all, not just IT leaders, just leaders in general. Well, so so what are your top three recommendations for CIOs regarding partner relationships?
We touched on quite a few already around the communications and expectations and having those open and honest conversation with your partner about what you want. And again, it's not just about the project, right? We touched on a lot of factors that are not specifically project related. Tony's made great points around the relationship and the culture and things like this. And so understanding what the partner is about and their approach in general, and making sure it's a good culture fit and relationships, all of those things, all suitable points of conversation. um, User adoption, stop shortcutting it. Make sure somebody on the team knows something about change management, that you're paying attention to it, that's incorporated in all your projects. And there's nothing wrong with doing change management outside of a project either. Just having a general overall approach to change management in the organization. And then the last one is, I don't know how much this happens anymore. I think we're getting better at this. I think people get so focused on associating technology to projects that you get into this mindset that, okay, I'm going to put forth this big effort, we're making this big investment, and there's a deadline at the end, there's a go live, what have you. And somehow that magically becomes this demarcation where now I really don't have to think so much about it. And it's such a shame that you're making this investment and then not continuing to support the investment. So, what's the ongoing investment in continuing to improve from a learning standpoint, from a possibly hard cost for add on products standpoint? I tend to think of a house. We've got a house that's about 12 years old now, right? It's just a function of a house. You make this investment up front and it's good for a while. And then guess what? If you don't take care of it and continue to refresh it, et cetera, then guess what? It goes down in value, it goes down in functionality, and it will eventually fall apart.
Mark, so thank you for your time
Oh, you
today.
bet.
It's always a pleasure talking to you. I know this won't be the last, and
Awesome.
I hope it's the next time is sooner than later. I always learn something when come away from our conversations. You've just been a tremendous force in the community,
I
and
appreciate
everything you
that.
touch, I say, turns to gold because you're just someone that any organization is lucky to
I
have.
appreciate that
Thank
so
you
much,
for that.
Tony. What a fun conversation, huh? And yes, of course, we both hope that everybody got at least one aha moment or one key takeaway here. And what a great topic. I thank you again for inviting me and being able
Yeah,
to share a delightful conversation, Tony.
thank you. All right, today on the CIO Lifeline, we have Mark Rhodes, business product. That won't be the first time that happens. All right.
Gosh, I don't even know where to start here. The, I have several. Can I just go for a while?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll
Because I
we'll,
have
we'll
a lot
trim her
of
down.
thoughts on this. A long time ago, we used to say 9 women can't have a baby in 1 month, which I don't know if that's politically correct to say anymore. I don't know. But you know what? It
Ooh,
demonstrates
trigger
it's the
warning!
concept, huh?
Trigger warning! um, is that a Cleveland Browns or is that a Denver Bronco helmet behind you?
Oh, well, thank you very much for asking. No, this would be University of Florida Gators.
Because if that was a Browns helmet, this was going to be a problem. Yeah. I got I got 4 episodes of thoughts on that one. Yeah.